Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Exploring Careers. Today you're joined by me, Mitch, as always, from the team here at Explore Careers. And today we're lucky enough to be joined by Bethany, who is coming from Moorabool Shire Council. Thank you so much for jumping on the call today.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
Excited to get stuck into this one. Now, before we get started, for those who haven't heard of Moorabool before, or Moorabool Shire Council, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so Moorabool Shire is one of the local government areas, and I work there as a revenue officer.
Awesome. And local government area, where are we in Victoria? What areas are we talking about?
Yeah, so in Victoria, so it's basically between the Ballarat City Council and the Melton Council as well.
Okay, awesome. And can you elaborate a bit on your role? I know you mentioned it just then, but what does that actually entail? What are you doing day to day?
Yeah, so revenue stuff is, there's a financial side of things and then there's a property side of things as well. So it's all to do with, say, property rates and making sure things are being rated correctly, and then also just like the daily banking and creating invoices for other areas, other departments as well.
Okay, cool. So was this something you were always keen on, like the numbers and that type of thing? Like, were you always keen on math? And how did you, I guess, come into this? Did, as I mentioned, was it something you had an interest on, while you're at school and going through your education? Did it come to you a bit later down the track? Can you talk us through, I guess, your career and education journey to this point?
Yeah, it's funny how it turned out, actually, because maths definitely wasn't my strong point in school. Never thought I'd be working with other accountants and things like that. But I finished high school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just worked in hospitality for a bit, for a few years in the meantime, did some traveling. And at one point when I was working in hospitality, I did apply for a few type of reception or accounts payable type roles and things like that. But at the time, they didn't want to hire me because I had no experience. So when I got back from overseas and I was sort of starting fresh, didn't have a job at that moment, I saw the Moorabool traineeship come up for business. And I was like, well, this is perfect, because they'd actually, want to hire someone to learn on the job. So yeah, it worked out really well.
Awesome. No, and I think that's such a great case study as well, in terms of how you mentioned that, you weren't super keen on maths back at when you're at school. But I think it's so important, as you would know now, to keep your options open and don't shut anything out, because while you might not be keen at school, it's funny how things you weren't keen on once upon a time can all of a sudden circle back to you later in life. I know myself personally, I hated history, for example, hated history class, but never paid attention. And now I'm 30 and now I'm a big history buff, and I've done a lot of work in the history field. So I think it's just a good example, as you've shown, to keep your options open, and you'll never know how things might turn out and come back to you later down the track. So you mentioned there as well how Moorabool offered an opportunity to train you on the job and, get that experience. So what was it about, I guess, Moorabool that stood out to you? Obviously, the training was one part of it, but what else, and what has led you to, I guess, want to stay with Moorabool rather than, okay, I'm now trained and can go elsewhere? What is it about Moorabool that's keeping you there, I guess?
Yeah, one of the main things that stood out is that it was local, because at the time I lived at home with mum and dad in Lal, and that was very close to the Balan office. Whereas I'd sort of gone to school in Ballarat and things like that. So it was something a bit different to be in Balan. And just the whole traineeship aspect of it was definitely what encouraged me towards that position and towards Moorabool. And then, I ended up, so I did the first year of traineeship, and then I got extended for another year after that. And then it was within the second year that somebody left who was in the revenue officer position. And so I applied for that job, and that's what I ended up getting, which I'm in now. And so, yeah, I just wanted to stay with them because they'd been so supportive and lovely. And like, you still learn things every single day on the job, but I got used to the systems and everything like that, and I was confident in what I could do there. So yeah, that's why I stayed.
Perfect. And you obviously sound quite passionate and quite enthusiastic about what you're doing. If you could bring it down to one thing, which I know might be a bit difficult, but what's your favourite part about working at Moorabool? Is it the people? Is it the work? What is it?
I think down to one thing, yeah, I think probably my like immediate team at Moorabool. There's been changes over the like nearly 3 years I've been there. There's been lots of changes in the team, but consistently everyone is just so supportive and so just kind and caring, and they're very flexible within the team on what you want to do, and they're very encouraging if you want to learn anything different. So I think that would be the same across all the other teams as well. But yeah, so it's just a very close team and close community within the Moorabool environment.
Okay, cool. No, that's great to hear because, I think something that's so important now, more so than probably ever before, I guess, is the work culture and the work environment, and making sure that the place that you are working and spending a lot of your time at is a progressive, inclusive, and enjoyable environment. So would you say that's, obviously you've alluded to it before, but would you say that's the case with Moorabool and they help you maintain a healthy work-life balance, because you don't want your work to be all-encompassing and just work all the time? So do you find that you're able to, get up to things outside of work and maintain that healthy work-life balance, as I mentioned?
Yeah, definitely. They're very big on that. That's something that I noticed straight away when I first started my traineeship in the first year. Yeah, they're very considerate of everyone's individual circumstances, and so they're very flexible around, if maybe sometimes you need a bit of later start time or something like that, they'll be able to figure it out with you and work with you to get all the work done. And yeah, in general, as an organisation too, they organise a lot of like social sort of gatherings as well, and a lot of things outdoors to try and keep that balance.
Cool, awesome. Now, one of the things I also wanted to touch on when working in, local government is the preconceptions and misconceptions that often come along with that. People often, looking from the outside in, would have a very narrow view of what working in local government actually looks like and the types of opportunities that are available. So are you able to talk us through, I guess, some of the common misconceptions that you've come across, or what people ask you about your role, and maybe help us debunk some of those?
Yeah, I think when I started, I wasn't really aware of many misconceptions and things like that when I started, because I was younger and I hadn't really sort of heard much about councils in general. But I think as I've grown up and as I've worked there longer, I've heard all the sort of tales that the community might think of a council. And I think just one of the things to keep in mind is just that a lot of the people who work for, say, Moorabool Shire live in Moorabool Shire, and they sort of have the same needs and wants and issues that a lot of the public have, which I think the community may sometimes sort of just forget to consider. So yeah, just basically just that we're like everybody else, and definitely that we're very busy, but we try to get things done, and we're definitely all for helping and just making the community a better place for everyone, because a lot of the ones who work there are actually still in that same community. So
yeah, it's affecting them as well, just as much as the wider community, obviously. So
yeah,
people who are listening to this and are thinking, you know what, this sounds right up my alley. This sounds something I could be keen on, or keen on learning a bit more about. What are the next steps from here? I guess, why, from your point of view, should someone consider a career with Moorabool or in the local government council industry as a whole? And what are the next steps? What do you need to do? What attributes are, Moorabool Shire looking for in people?
Yeah, I think definitely if an opportunity like this comes up, you definitely want to go for it. If you get into like a council sort of job, there's a lot of movement you can do between different departments as well. So if your interests change or you pick up different interests as you work there, you can also move around to different departments and things like that, which is always just really good for your career as well. And yeah, just the environment is just very, work-life balance, very flexible. It's just, a real community sort of atmosphere. And in regards to what sort of things they'd be looking out for in an applicant, I think definitely attention to detail is something that's very important. But then the other main thing would just be a can-do attitude, like just a positive mentality and just a willingness to learn new things is very important, I think, for any sort of government role. And just that care for the community.
Amazing. No, it definitely sounds like a great place not only to start your career, but then grow and progress your career as well, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, last question I wanted to leave you on today, which is how I end all these interviews, is advice. What advice would you give to, I guess, any young people watching this today? Our audience is primarily students at school, at high school. So, in year 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it may be. It's often a really stressful time because you're asked to make, big decisions in regards to your future, whether it be subject choices or if you're going off to further education or straight to the workforce. And you're tasked, with making, as I mentioned, these big decisions at a relatively young age where, you're more worried about what's going on the weekend or who's playing who in the football or whatever it may be. But at the same time, you've got all these people asking you, are you going to uni? Are you going to take? What are you going to do? All the rest of it. So I guess you've been through that experience. So I guess knowing what you know now and being what you've been through, what advice would you give to any young people who are kind of living through that at the moment?
Yeah, it's definitely a very hard time because you do get people asking you all these questions. What are you going to do and all this? And if you don't know, like I didn't know, it can be very stressful. But basically just remember that you can start a career or you can start learning new things at any point in your entire life. It really, even though there is the pressure placed on you when you are younger and just finishing school, it really isn't the be all end all. And that if you do have an idea of maybe something you're interested in, I think definitely like an apprenticeship or a traineeship would be the way to go. I think it's great being able to learn on the job. Just increasing those people skills at the same time. Don't just consider all options and try not to get too stressed out.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think just keep your options open. As you said, it's not often that you've got it all worked out. And of course, you'll always have that one person at school, whether it's a friend or a brother or a sister, who does seem to have everything worked out. And if that's the case, and if that's you, then absolutely fantastic. But by no means do you need to compare yourself to people who have got it all figured out. That's definitely not what you need to do. You don't realise how much time you've got ahead of you. I'm now 30 and been out of school now, 12 years, which is scary, but you just don't realise how much time ahead of you to work out exactly what you want to do. So as you mentioned quite rightly just before, try a few things, see how you go, and it will all eventuate down the track and you will find your path. That is absolutely true. But Bethany, it has been so great chatting to you today, hearing about your own career journey, your career story, about Moorabool Shire Council and the careers in local council and local government. Of course, if you are keen on learning more, please do head to explorecareers.com.au and find your way to the Moorabool Shire Council profile on our website. We'll leave all the relevant links down below. So if you're keen on what Bethany's had to say today and you want to learn more and go thinking, okay, great, this is a path I want to go down and potentially get started on, all the information is there for you to help you get started. But Bethany, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been so amazing talking to you.
Thank you, Mitch.